Hello there, and thank you for stopping by Sleepy Tales by John, a place where every sound from the outside world slowly quiets down, leaving only your breath and the soft night sky opening before you. Tonight, we're going to look up at the night sky together, a place overflowing with light, wonder, and endless mysteries. Above you is the gentle glow of the moon. Farther away, constellations smile faintly in the darkness, and drifting even farther are planets moving in quiet, unhurried paths. But behind all that familiar beauty lies another layer, a deeper one, filled with secrets that our eyes alone can never grasp. Some of the stars you see tonight have already faded. The light you're looking at is the only thing that remains. A misty cloud you notice above might be a galaxy, so vast that its light takes millions of years to cross the dark. And a meteor's bright streak, so sharp and sudden, might have begun from nothing more than a grain of dust, smaller than your fingertip. That's the night sky for you, simple yet overwhelming. A companion you see every day, but one that never stops astonishing those who look up. And if these quiet journeys bring you comfort, you might press like, subscribe, or leave a small message. It helps other wandering hearts find their way to this gentle corner of calm. But for now, take a deep breath and let the night sky guide you. The scene before you feels like a great curtain where every glimmer of light carries a story about time. From the stillness of night, you step softly into a place where stars become the quietest storytellers in the universe. Imagine that each star is not merely a point of light, but a thread of radiance, stretching across thousands, even millions of years. One end of that thread is the moment the star was born, maybe inside a swirling cloud of dust, maybe in a region heavy with radiation, or during a violent explosion that shook the sky. The other end is this exact moment, when you lift your gaze and allow that light to touch you. The light left the surface of some distant sun long before your ancestors existed, before Earth's oceans found their colors, before the first forests were even a thought in the future. And only now, at the exact moment you're lying still, breathing slowly, listening to a bedtime story, that ancient light completes its journey. A journey so long, no words can describe it. Thinking of that makes the sky feel a little closer, almost like holding an old letter in your hands, a letter sent not from another country, but from another era. Some of the stars you see tonight have died long ago. They may have burst into clouds of glowing debris or collapsed into dense, silent remnants hidden in the dark. But their final light, their last goodbye, still wanders the cold of space, crossing the endless void to meet you in this fragile second. Those stars, in a way, are like friends who sent their letters too late. The sender is long gone, yet the letter still arrives. And when you look at them, you're reading a story no one else has ever read, because that tiny ray of light has reached Earth only at this exact moment when you are here. If you listen closely, not with your ears, but with the quiet inside your mind, you'll feel that the night sky is a library of time. Each point of light is a page, each cluster a chapter, each streak a note the universe left for itself. Some stars are young, glowing blue and fierce, like passionate scribbles. Some are old, red and gentle like lines written in fading ink. Some don't stay still. They pulse and flicker, as though trying to whisper the part of their story you haven't yet decoded. Imagine this for a moment. Every night when you lift your eyes, you're reopening a book the universe spent billions of years writing. Not everyone reads it, not because it's difficult, but because it asks for slowness. And when you slow down, as you are right now, those little lights begin to reveal deeper layers. The first layer says, "I am here." The second says, "I once shone." And the third says, I still have something to offer you. Stars don't just tell their own stories. They tell the story of the sky, of the birth of atoms, of light, of endless cycles. Everything must pass through. They whisper that beauty too has its lifespan. It begins, it blazes, it softens, it vanishes. But its light continues its journey, warming someone's heart across the vastness of space. When you understand that, you may feel something delicate spreading inside you. Something both small and vast. Small, because we are but brief sparks in the infinite dark. Vast, because in this moment, you are connected to stars that lived and died before humanity knew how to call itself by name. So when you look up, know that you are not simply stargazing. You're running your fingers along the pages of the oldest library ever to exist. You're speaking with things that happened long, long ago. And in that stillness, the stars tell you their story of birth, of fading, of the endless journey of light. All right then. As you're listening to these stories sent by distant stars, you'll start to realize that the night sky isn't only a vault of cosmic memory. It's also a journal of humankind. Those lights didn't just tell tales of ancient pasts. They guided every step of our earliest journeys. From the light that traveled millions of years, you gently drift toward another meaning. The sky as an old teacher, watching over us since the time we couldn't even write. Long ago, when the world had no maps or compasses, when every voyage was a promise made to the unknown, people walked through the night with a single faith. The sky would not betray them. In deserts where footprints vanished, across oceans with no shores, only the stars stayed. Still, steady, patient, like guardians of time. Back then, they didn't call the sky the universe. They called it names closer to the heart. A guide, a storyteller, a silent witness. They knew that when night fell, constellations would appear like meditative markers, soft, steady, calming enough to keep fear away. Under their gentle light, travelers walked at the same slow rhythm as the breath of the night. Polaris stayed in the north, unmoving, unshaken, unwavering. People used to say, as long as you can find Polaris, you haven't lost your place in the world. Like an invisible nail pinned into the sky, holding the north steady, like a heartbeat that keeps the body from falling into chaos. On the other side of Earth, the Southern Cross served the same purpose, a glowing hand pointing downward toward the sea, where wooden ships drifted through black waves. When you imagine sailors looking up at it, you'll feel the distance of thousands of years shrink. Though separated by time, they too once stood still, lifted their heads, and let that light guide them, just as you are doing now. The night sky is quiet, but full of stories that once supported whole civilization. Nomads of the grasslands followed the path of Orion, like walking with an old friend. Sailors saw Cassiopeia's bent shape as a reminder that land was still somewhere far away. People living in the Sahara watched Scorpius appear before the true heat of the season arrived. Every culture read the sky in its own language, but all shared one truth. The sky was humanity's very first map. You can imagine yourself standing in the middle of a wide-open field. There are no car sounds, no city lights, only the night wind and a gentle darkness wrapping softly around you. Above, constellations appear one by one like the familiar faces of old friends. Friends who were here long before you arrived, and who will still be here long after you've fallen asleep. If you close your eyes for a moment, you might feel a very subtle kind of movement, not from the ground, not from the wind, but from the flow of time. That current connects you to all those who once stood beneath this same sky, hundreds, thousands, even tens of thousands of years ago. A father teaching his child how to find Polaris. A sailor standing at the bow of a ship, listening to the waves and using Orion to fix his direction. A wanderer walking through the desert, following the curve of Scorpius to avoid drifting into dead sands. They and you, though separated by centuries, are using the same map, a map drawn in ancient light. There is something very special about this. The sky doesn't only guide our feet, it also guides the mind. When people in the old days were tired, they would pause, look up, and let the stars rearrange the tangled strings inside them. Just like you are using the night sky to reorganize your thoughts right now. In the silence of night, the sky becomes a vast tapestry, woven from trust, experience, and stories passed through many generations. From the lips of those who have gone very far, to the ears of those who are about to leave. And now, you too are joining the line of those who listen to the sky, because looking up at the night isn't just an action. It's a ritual, a way to remind yourself that no matter where you are in life, you always have a place to return to, a light to follow, a direction that never changes. And when you allow your mind to slow down in rhythm with your breath, you'll hear what our ancestors once knew very clearly. The sky is never truly dark. It's just holding the stories you haven't finished telling yet. And as you're still standing inside this memory field of your ancestors, along the paths woven by starlight, along the ghostly steps that once slipped through the darkness, you begin to realize that the sky doesn't only give us direction. It also opens much wider doorways. Doorways that even our wise ancestors could only gaze at but never touch. And the most radiant of those pathways is that soft, misty band stretching across the sky above you. The Milky Way, that silver river quietly flowing through the night, doesn't appear as a single, isolated object, but as a gentle bridge between human dreams and the deep, quiet breath of the universe. When you look up at the Milky Way, it's as if you're gazing at a delicate crack in the night, where light from hundreds of billions of stars leaks out, gathering into a faint glowing road that everyone once thought was just a streak of cloud. In truth, what your eyes can see is only a very thin slice of the entire galaxy, a vast spiral in which Earth is just a tiny speck of dust on the edge. Every silvery streak you see is made of countless suns circling the galactic center along orbits as light as breathing, so slow that even if you lived 1,000 lifetimes, you'd never truly see them shift. And every dark lane that cuts between those glowing streams, those places we mistake for voids or empty trenches, are actually cradles where clouds of dust are quietly gathering, contracting, and then bursting into new stars. Every night, even while you sleep, the Milky Way is still cradling the birth of light within itself. If you close your eyes for a moment and let your imagination open like a door, you can picture yourself drifting in a small boat made of silver, gliding along that endless river of stars. There is no sound, no waves, only billions of tiny points of light whispering to each other, the faint heartbeats of a young universe. You float past old star clusters, glowing red like embers at the end of the day, then glide by newborn blue stars, bright and sharp like freshly blown glass. You can hear the soft turning of galactic dust, the gathering of hydrogen gas, the fabric of space-time slowly expanding and gently folding again. Every sound is soft, dim, and tender, like the final breath before sleep takes over. You might find yourself wondering, how can a river of light appear so clearly in a universe with hundreds of billions of galaxies? The answer is surprisingly simple. It's because you are inside that spiral. Just as when you stand in a forest, you can't see the whole forest, but you can see the endless trunks stretching upward, touching the sky. The Milky Way is the same for you, a forest of stars, and you are standing in its heart. You only see the bands of starlight reaching out around you, but you can't see the full shape of the galaxy from where you stand. Sometimes, the dark patches in the Milky Way, those enormous dust clouds, block the light of millions of suns. But it is precisely in those dark patches that new stars are born. That isn't the absence of light. It's a door temporarily closed so that something new can be prepared behind it. These dark regions are like pages still being written, where the galaxy quietly prepares to tell its next chapter in the language of light. And if you allow your mind to drift a little slower, you'll feel something strange and gentle. The Milky Way doesn't just shine, it listens. It watches. It witnesses millions of stories playing out on Earth, without hurry, without judgment, without demanding anything in return. It simply stretches out its arms of light so that anyone who looks up can sense that they are standing before something so vast it can't be named. You can imagine each star in that silver river as a single breath, and when you look up, you are listening to the slow, ancient breathing of the universe. The breath that, from billions of years ago, has guided tiny dust grains to gather, then grow into planets, into suns, and eventually into beings like you. The Milky Way is a reminder that no matter how lost or small you feel, you are living inside a space woven from light. You belong to a story far larger than yourself, where everything has its rhythm, its reason, and its time to unfold. And as you drift along that river of stars, even if only in your imagination, you'll see that in the middle of the night, there is always one place that shines for you. Always wide enough for your mind to rest and deep enough for your heart to stop worrying. Because the Milky Way is not just your galaxy. It is a soft bridge connecting you to your dreams, to the universe, and to the quietest, most peaceful part of yourself. Now, as you let the light of hundreds of billions of stars gently stroke your mind, something very delicate begins to happen right before your eyes. A tiny movement, fleeting and fragile, yet strong enough to make the whole sky feel like it just took a breath. It doesn't last long. It doesn't demand attention. It simply appears as a brief greeting from distant space. That is the moment when you see a streak of light cut across the night, distant space. That is the moment when you see a streak of light cut across the night. A shooting star in that brief instant is like a grain of incense falling slowly through a darkened sky. A line of light brushed across the darkness, soft as a casual stroke of a paintbrush on the unfinished canvas of night, and then, as quickly as a blink, it dissolves into glowing dust, leaving behind a silence so deep you're not sure whether you actually saw it or merely dreamed it. The larger fireballs, those bright meteors or bolides, appear like candles suddenly flaring up in the black ocean of space. Sometimes they shine so brightly that for a single second even the sky seems to hold its breath. They're not real stars at all. They are just tiny particles, maybe the size of a grain of sand, sometimes a little larger, plunging into our atmosphere at unimaginable speeds. And with only a brief touch against the air, their whole bodies flare up, burning and shining like a private phenomenon offered only to those who happen to look up at the perfect moment. What makes a meteor special is not its arrival, but the way it disappears. A single flash, and that's it. It leaves nothing behind except the subtle feeling that the sky just sent you a message. Small, delicate, like a note, slipped into your hand and then immediately dissolved. You can't hold on to it. You can only remember that it once passed by. If you let your mind soften, you'll start to see that these streaks of light don't just fall through the sky. They fall into memory. Maybe they fall into the memory of nights when you were little, lying by a window or out on a porch, watching the sky and making your very first wish. Maybe they fall into the memory of a long journey where you saw a sudden streak and felt your whole heart grow lighter in an instant. Or maybe they fall into the memory of a night so quiet that even the wind didn't dare disturb it. And in that stillness, a single ray of light slipped across the sky, like the universe placing a comma in its endless sentence. All of this brings us to a gentle truth. The sky has never truly slept. While you are lying here listening, breathing slowly, loosening each thought one by one, until it floats weightlessly outside right above your roof. The sky is still moving at its own slow, steady pace. Meteors are falling. Streaks of light are being drawn. Stories are being written, in brightness instead of words. Everything unfolds beyond your sight, but no less real because of it. In fact, it is precisely this quiet that makes the sky deep enough to hold your sleep in its arms. And sometimes, when you see a streak of light slide across the heavens, you're not just seeing a burning speck of rock. You're seeing yourself. Small, fleeting, but still capable of sparking something beautiful in this immense world. Just like a meteor, you don't need to be huge to create a moment worth remembering. You only need a little light, a little warmth, a little presence at the right time, and that alone is enough for someone to feel the beauty of this life. So when you look up at the sky and see a thin streak of light drifting across, know that you've just watched a story being written in real time. A story the universe will never tell in exactly the same way twice. A story meant only for the one who is listening to it with their whole heart. And when that light fades, the night sky returns to its original stillness, but not exactly as before. Because deep inside, you've carried away something softer, lighter, and more intimate with the sky. A message that needs no words, no sound, only a slow, quiet gaze to understand that the universe is still whispering to you in its own way. When those fragile streaks of shooting stars have just melted into the dark, leaving behind a sky as smooth as a night blanket that has just been gently smoothed out, you'll notice the space above you begin to change color. It's as if the sky has quietly let out a long breath, and in that breath, a familiar light slowly begins to rise. Not dazzling, not hurried, but slow, like a close friend stepping into the room so they don't startle you. And that is the moment when the moon appears, as if it has been waiting for you for a very long time. The moon rises like an old friend, sitting down at your bedside with its soft silver light, bringing with it a feeling that only something that has walked beside you for so long can give, a peace that needs no explanation. When the moon is full, it's round like a silent smile, a reminder that no matter how long or heavy your day has been, there is always something out there, watching over you, with unwavering gentleness. When the moon is waning, it's thin like an unfinished promise, soft as a comma in the nighttime story the universe is telling just for you. The moon's rising and setting is like the very breath of space itself, steady, grounded, and endlessly patient. The moon never rushes to grow, and it never rushes to fade. It changes slowly, following ancient cycles that have played out for billions of years, as if to tell you that the most beautiful things in life always need a little time to bloom. And on blood moon nights, when the sky wears a mysterious red cloak, the moon becomes a glowing red lantern, suspended in the void, slow, deep, like the heart of the sky beating at its slowest rhythm. In that light, there is healing, a kind of healing that doesn't come from words or actions, but from presence. The moon doesn't speak, but it is always there. It doesn't hold you in its arms, but it holds you in its light. It doesn't ask you questions, but somehow it makes you feel understood in a way that sometimes even people cannot. Under the moon's glow, all the sharp edges of the world seem to soften. Worries grow lighter, painful memories feel more distant, and your heartbeat slows down as if it's syncing with the breathing of the universe. In truth, if you pay attention, every night the moon brings a different shade of itself. There are nights when moonlight is so white that everything seems covered in a thin veil of mist, a kind of beauty that makes you want to inhale deeply so you don't miss it. There are nights when the moon is golden, as if brushed on by the strokes of an ancient painter, making the sky look like a painting crafted with pure patience. And there are nights when the moon is pale blue, gentle, like a bedtime blessing meant solely for your soul. The moon never repeats itself. Just like you, just like every night, like every breath. And perhaps what makes the moon the most loyal whispering friend of sleepless nights is the way it accepts every version of you. When you're tired, when you're lighthearted, when you're fragile, or when you're strong. It's always there, standing in the sky like a friend who never turns away. Its job is not to solve your problems. It's simply to remind you, you are not alone. And then, when the last strip of moonlight slips past the edge of the roof and leaves behind a clear, open sky, you'll feel something change ever so slightly. As if the universe is getting ready to tell a different story, one that is larger, rarer, and so deep that even the most restless hearts have to pause. A moment that, even if you weren't consciously waiting for it, your heart naturally opens up to receive. The moment when light, something so familiar, begins to withdraw slowly, like a thin curtain being drawn across the face of the sun. Imagine darkness sweeping across the earth like a soft black wind, gliding by without making a sound. The sun is gradually covered. Its usual pale golden light turns into a strange kind of twilight. Not quite day, not quite night, but a threshold where all your senses sharpen. In those few brief but profound minutes, everything sinks into a particular kind of silence, as if the world is holding its breath so as not to break the fragility of this moment. The light recedes, pulling back gently like a child withdrawing their hand from cold water. Stars that had been hiding suddenly return in the middle of the day, like old friends stepping out from behind the theater curtain. The air changes too, cooler, thicker somehow, carrying a feeling you cannot explain but still recognize instinctively. Your heartbeat slows and falls into step with the faint tremor of the sky. The trees stand still. Birds are confused, thinking that night has come early. And in the few seconds when the eclipse reaches totality, the world seems to stop to listen to a long, long sigh from the universe. A soundless sigh, yet it echoes deep inside your chest. An eclipse is not just an astronomical event for humans to observe. It is a reminder that everything we consider stable is in fact fragile. That even light must sometimes step off the stage so darkness can have its turn to speak. That the universe's order is so delicate that just a slight misalignment can create a scene powerful enough to stir the human heart. And strangely, in that moment when the sky becomes incomplete, people often feel more whole, more connected, more still with themselves. As if that temporary darkness opens a small door into the world inside you, a world you rarely visit. And as the shadow of the eclipse draws back, like a black velvet cloth being gently lifted from the earth, the light returns more slowly than usual, softer, deeper, like a long exhale the universe has saved just for you. In that moment, you might feel the world become a little clearer, not because the light is stronger, but because your mind has been quiet long enough to finally notice what it usually overlooks. And as your eyes adjust to the sky revealed after that darkness, you realize a simple truth. The sky has never been only the moon and the stars. Out there are silent neighbors too, planets that appear every night, but only when your heart is slow enough do you truly sense their gentle presence. In that stillness, we step together into a place where each planet becomes a character, each orbit becomes a story, and the solar system turns into a family gathered under the dome of night. Let's begin the journey with Venus, the first planet to appear, and the brightest one after the moon. Although its surface is so hot it could melt metal, the light of Venus feels gentle, like an old oil lamp placed on a shelf in the sky. It shines without glaring, it warms without burning, as if to say that everything in the universe has two sides, a fierce one hidden deep within, and a tender one that always glows softly on the outside. Venus is not just a planet. It's like a quiet friend who taps lightly on your window each evening, reminding you that light is still there, no matter how long your day has been. Moving a little farther, you meet Jupiter, the gentle giant of the solar system. In the imagination of quiet nights, Jupiter is like an elderly father, round, kind, wrapped in striped robes of brown and orange. And around Jupiter are the 4 Galilean moons, Io, Europa, Ganymede, Callisto. Circling like four children, holding hands and running around a yard. Each moon keeps a secret of its own. Europa holds an underground ocean that might cradle life. Io is a world of roaring volcanoes. Ganymede is larger than the planet Mercury, and Callisto is still and ancient, like a weathered stone. That whole family spins in harmony. Like a lullaby, the sun has been humming for ages. Then comes Saturn, the planet wearing a ring of ice so beautiful that anyone who looks up can feel their heart soften. If Jupiter is a generous father, Saturn is like a contemplative artist, wearing an old piece of jewelry carved from light and time. Saturn's rings are not solid, they're delicate. Billions of tiny ice particles, orbiting like glitter drifting slowly in space. Saturn reminds us that beauty doesn't always come from endurance. Sometimes it comes from delicacy, from things that are fragile yet shimmer in a way nothing else can. Mars, the small red ember off in the distance, carries a different feeling. It's small, not overly bright, but strangely magnetic, like a little fire glowing quietly on a winter night. Mars carries the story of ancient rivers, polar ice caps, and red sand dunes, stretching like the memories of a world that once had water, once had wind, once had seasons shifting just like Earth. When you look at Mars, it feels like gazing into the eyes of someone who has been through a lot, yet still tries to keep a little light for themselves. Mercury is entirely different. Small, swift, always racing around the sun like a hurried messenger, Mercury is neither dazzling nor mysterious. It is the fastest heartbeat in the system, a reminder that even in this slow, patient universe, there are still souls that prefer to live quickly, to move fast so they can keep up with the call of the light. Farther out, Uranus and Neptune drift in deep blue shadows like two wandering spirits. Uranus tilts so much that its rings spin almost on their side, like a person sleeping sideways under space's cold blanket. Neptune is a darker blue, cold, but beautiful like a boundless ocean, as if someone took the color of Earth's seas and painted it onto the sky without telling you. All of these planets, each with its own color, its own rhythm, circle the sun in silence. No one cuts into anyone else's orbit. No one is loud. No one competes. They just drift, light as leaves on water, for billions of years. And in that slow movement, you suddenly realize something. The solar system is also a family that never argues, never abandons one another, simply spinning together to the music that time composes. And you, the one listening now, belong to that family too. You are not a spectator standing outside. You live on a grain of dust that knows how to think, to love, to cry, and to dream. A tiny speck carrying its own story, spinning among countless others. As you breathe more slowly, you might feel as though the whole system is breathing with you. Venus glows softly. Jupiter turns. Saturn shimmers. Mars burns red. Mercury runs swift. Uranus sleeps on its side. Neptune drifts afar, and all of them, together, seem to be lulling you to sleep with their ancient, enduring quiet. Let sleep come to you as gently as the moon's rising, as soft as Saturn's pale rings, as smooth as Venus's evening glow. And know this: every time you look up at the sky, those neighbors are still there, patiently waiting for you to return. And as the planets quietly drift through the night, each with its own light, its own rhythm, you begin to feel that the night sky is not just a still painting. It feels more like a very slow, very vast symphony, where each celestial body is an instrument and the universe is a conductor who never appears. But just when you've grown familiar with the steady rhythm of the planets, with the soft glow of Venus, the stately presence of Jupiter, the thin ice rings of Saturn, the sky suddenly offers you a different kind of moment. A visitor that does not follow any familiar schedule, that does not circle in neat, ordered orbits like the members of the sun's family. a wanderer that appears from the far darkness, as if passing by only to remind you that the universe is much larger than what you usually see. That is where the story of comets begins. Comets appear in the night like wandering guests, carrying a luminous tail as soft as a silver ribbon flying in the wind. That tail is not fixed. It stretches for millions of kilometers, growing brighter and then fading, like the long breath of an ancient soul. Long ago, people feared comets. They thought they were omens, signs of change. But if you look with the slow eyes of someone meditating beneath the night sky, comets are not frightening at all. They are like letters the universe sent a long time ago, which just happen to arrive at the exact moment you're looking up. Most of the time, comets live in regions so far away that light there is as faint as dust. Those wanderers sleep in the darkness for millions of years, lying still in the vast Oort cloud, a place so cold that nothing seems to move and no sound seems to exist. But sometimes, a gentle tug from giant planets, or a soft, subtle touch of gravity from a passing star, will wake them. And then, the comet begins its journey, a journey longer than any tale ever told, where each of its orbits can be longer than the entire history of a civilization. Some comets take thousands of years to return near the sun once. Others take millions. And then there is Halley, the rare familiar guest we are lucky enough to meet a few times in one human lifetime. Halley is like an old friend from far away, stepping through the cosmic doorway, leaning down to look at Earth and quietly asking, "Since the last time we met, how much have you grown?" Each time it visits, humanity has changed. The children who once watched it streak across the sky have become grandparents, telling that story to the next generation. Halley doesn't say a word, yet its steady return makes people realize that no matter how much we change, the sky keeps a few promises that never fail. The most beautiful thing about comets may not lie only in their light, but in their fragility. When a comet comes too close to the sun, its ice and dust melt, break away, and are swept off by the solar wind, slowly disappearing like snowflakes touching a candle flame. A brief moment of radiance, then a retreat into darkness. When you see a glowing streak crossing the sky, you are really watching a dissolution, an ending turning into beauty. That light exists for only a fleeting instant, but its image lingers for a very long time in the human heart. Some comets completely disappear during their journey. They never return to their old, cold home again. And if you think of this in a very gentle, meditative way, you may find that it is beautiful in its own strange way. They burned with all they had, then dissolved into the sun's light, as a kind of homecoming, like a story that has fulfilled its purpose and no longer needs to be prolonged. But there are also comets that leave a gift for Earth. The tiny remnants of them, when falling into our atmosphere, turn into meteors. Sometimes you see a streak of light dart across the sky, and it feels like a wish running along the heavens. In truth, it is the last greeting of some distant, ancient comet. Beautiful, short-lived, yet familiar, like a gentle touch of a hand in the night. Comets carry their stories from generation to generation. The Egyptians once saw them, the Greeks saw them. Fishing boats on the seas once read the sky by the trails of comets. And today you, sitting in this quiet darkness, are also looking at the same streak of light your distant ancestors once saw. In that moment, though thousands of years apart, you and they stand beneath the same sky. If you close your eyes for a moment, you can imagine yourself standing in a wide open field, a windless night, the sky opening like a doorway. A thin streak of light appears, soft as silk, curving and melting into the darkness. No sound, no warning, only the pure beauty of a moment the universe has gifted to you. And in that stillness, you realize that comets never try to impress anyone. They simply pass by. But it is precisely that simple passing that people remember. Just as in life, there are things that only need to appear once, to stay forever in our memory. Let the story of comets lull you into a slower breath. Softer, wider. Let their light dissolve into the inner space of your mind, leaving behind a quiet gap, as gentle as the night's last exhale before you sink into sleep. And when the last glowing trace of a comet fades away in your imagination, soft as a ribbon pulling back into the dark, the sky returns to its original stillness. No more streaks of light, no more silver tails, only the deep night stretching open like a vast doorway. You begin to realize that behind those fleeting moments, behind every passing meteor and every long, interrupted orbit, there has always been something broader, more immense, more ancient, watching you in return. A giant tapestry woven from darkness and light, where every story, whether of a comet, a planet, or of your own life, is just a fine thread in an endless picture. The night deepens a little more, and it is in that very moment that you start to see the deep universe emerging like an ancient storyteller, sitting down beside you, calm and vast. The distant galaxies, in their absolute silence, are like cities of light hanging suspended in infinite darkness. Each galaxy, whether spiral, elliptical, or irregular, holds billions of suns that are breathing. If you imagine yourself drifting with your eyes half closed, you can see those cities appear, slowly grow larger, then fade as you float away. No sound, no borders, only light being born, aging, then dissolving into the dark background in a life cycle no one witnesses, yet that has never been absent. And between those cities are nebulae, the nurseries of the universe, where the smallest dust grains gather into stars, where winds of hot gas sweep through patches of blue and purple like the hands of a painter brushing color across the darkness. You might picture those nebulae as soft petals opening in the cold of space, blazing for a while and then closing again, only to prepare for the next stars to ignite. And then there are places where light cannot reach, the universe's absolute meditation wells, black holes. They are not monsters as people often imagine. They are like doorways into perfect silence, the point where all vibrations, all motion, all light let go of their bodies and dissolve into stillness. If nebulae are where the universe begins to grow, then black holes are where everything returns. In the breathing of the night, they are like bottomless wells standing quietly in the void, receiving the last stories of stars, dust, and light, and keeping them in complete peace. Farther still, telescopes like Hubble or James Webb become humanity's eyes, peering across billions of years to read the universe's ancient journal. The light they collect is not today's light. It is the light of the primordial era, when the universe was young, hot, and chaotic. You can imagine those rays as pages of an old diary, browned by the wind of time, yet every word still carrying its weight. That is where all stories began, from a single flash of the Big Bang, spreading into a sea of stars, galaxies, planets, and finally, into this very moment, where you're lying here, listening to the night's storytelling. And then, within that dark tapestry, you yourself are also a part of it. When you lie still beneath the night sky, with your breath slowing, your heart beating softly as if farther and farther away, you realize that you're not just looking at the universe, you're blending into it. Every atom at your fingertips once lived inside a star that exploded. Every particle in your body once pulsed with the rhythm of nuclear fusion. And in this night, when everything has become so quiet that you can hear your heart echoing inside your chest, you feel as though you're drifting into a place very soft, very deep, very wide, a place with no beginning and no end. Imagine you are lying on a small boat of light, with no oars and no sails. That boat glides between two galaxies, drifts past a violet nebula, slips beside bright blue stars, and sometimes comes close to the edge of a black hole. only to feel for a moment that absolute stillness. No wind blows, no waves rise, only a peace so vast that you can no longer tell where the outside ends and the inside of your mind begins. This is where all stories begin, and also where they return, not with noise, not with haste, but with a slow, gentle motion, like you're breathing right now. You don't need to try to understand everything. You don't need to hold onto every image, every concept, every galaxy. The universe may be unimaginably large, but your sleep is very close by. And as you drift gradually into that soft space, notice this. The dark is not frightening. It is like a great blanket being pulled over you. A blanket woven from stars, from dust, from light that has traveled for millions of years to get here, to be seen, to be shared with you in this exact moment. Let your shoulders soften. Let your forehead release. Let your thoughts unclench. Everything outside can wait until morning. For now, let the universe take you into its arms. Let the gentle darkness lull you into a deep sleep where you drift in peace like a small planet rolling along the orbit of the night. Sleep well, traveler beneath the endless sky. The universe will keep watch over your dreams.